The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
Good morning and welcome back to First Mover. Bankrupt crypto exchange FTX floated an amended proposal to return up to 90% of creditor holdings held at the exchange before it imploded. The debtors group, which is overseeing the bankruptcy process, will formally file the plan by December 16th. Joining us now to discuss is Eversheds Sutherland partner and co-global head of corporate crime and investigations, Sarah Paul. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Now, just set the stage for us. Tell us about the group you are representing.
Yeah, so we represent the ad hoc committee of non-U.S. customers of FTX.com. It's a very, very diverse group of stakeholders. We have entity holders, we have individual holders, but they're all international customers. And so now our membership is over 50 members. And we have collectively over 1 billion in holdings in claims on the exchange. So we're quite a significant group.
The group of, so these are, as you said, non-U.S. customers. How are their rights to anything that comes out of bankruptcy court different than those of U.S. holders? And if it's $1 billion spread among 50 people, I assume that quite a few of those are institutional players. What's the breakdown of institutional players versus non-institutional?
Yeah, I can't give you the exact breakdown, but I mean, it's probably about half and half, roughly. And certainly some of them have very significant holdings, but we also have very small holders as well. So it is quite a diverse group. And we're a mix of, we have quite a few original holders, meaning, folks who, originally had claims on the estate, and then we have some secondary holders too.
And how is their situation different than U.S. Clients or U.S. claimants?
Yeah, I mean, I could go into the legal differences, but for purposes of this and for purposes of this, this settlement, really, it's going to be the same, right? They have rights to distribution just like anybody else. They lost money on the exchange, and they're going to have the right to get payouts. And the settlement that we now reached, which I can talk about in a minute, has a very favorable mechanism for priority distribution for them.
I want to talk about the settlement in just a moment, but what's it been like working with FTX's new leadership? Of course, it's being led by John J. Ray III. How have negotiations gone?
Yeah, I think negotiations have gone very well. I mean, it's been a very hard-fought process between us and the debtors, as well as the official committee of unsecured creditors. It's gone on for months, and we've advocated hard for our position on customer property rights. But, I think it's been collaborative and constructive, and we're happy with where we are right now.
All right. Now tell us about that settlement. So the plan's going to be filed with the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. Break down exactly what creditors can expect once the plan goes through.
Yeah, I mean, so we're really just thrilled to have reached this settlement on behalf of our clients. As I mentioned, this has been hard fought. We've spent months negotiating and advocating for our legal position. And this really is representing the culmination of our efforts so far. As I think everyone who's watching the criminal trial of Sam Bankman-Fried has seen, the FTX.com customers were really the victims of mass misappropriation of their assets. And so that's why we, on behalf of the ad hoc committee, filed litigation in the bankruptcy proceeding, seeking a finding that these assets are customer property and should be available for distribution only to FTX.com customers and not the general unsecured creditors of the FTX debtors. So that's the position we've been advocating for from the beginning. And so now the settlement and plan support agreement that we've reached includes a very favorable resolution of this critical issue. We have agreed to resolve our litigation in connection with the plan framework that's expected to result in the distribution approximately 90% of the distributable value of the FTX debtors to be paid to customers. So we're very, very happy with that result. We were also able to advocate successfully for an efficient mechanism for favorably resolving eligible FTX.com customers' preference exposure. So the agreement essentially set the allocation of value so that all stakeholders could be incentivized and aligned to maximize the value to be distributed to all creditors. It's a great result.
So, kind of, if you can, just a little bit. I don't know how much detail you can give here, but a couple of things. First of all, you mentioned that these are unsecured. They're unsecured creditors, correct? Because they are account holders, but they're not unsecured in the way other types of debt are. And then you have secured creditors. So, did you have to negotiate with those guys as well? What exactly happened here? And second of all, is it going to be the same across the board? In other words, if it's 90% for a guy with $1 billion, is it 90% for a guy with $20,000?
Yeah, let me see if I can answer that. So, I mean, our key argument throughout, our involvement so far has been about this customer property issue. So we argued that really the assets that the FTX.com customers placed on the exchange were their property. So the customers were not unsecured creditors at all under our argument. In fact, it was their property and they had first right to that property. So that was our argument. So now to resolve the litigation, and we really did want to reach a settlement because we knew a final judgment could have taken years to reach. We also knew that identifying and tracing customer assets to prove ownership would be a hurdle in many instances. So we wanted to resolve that. So we resolved it by settling on this priority distribution, right? Such that, the FTX.com customers, we're no longer arguing that it's customer property, but instead they get this priority distribution ahead of others, which is expected to result in approximately 90% of the distributable value of the debtors to be paid to them. And that's true for, U.S. customers as well as international customers, that 90% figure.
You say 90% value, and I'm not going to get too much into specifics here, but ultimately, is that dollar value? Or is it going to be in crypto value? Like, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, that's I think a little bit to be determined. Okay. So I'm not gonna answer that yet.
That's fine. That's fine. No, it's just according to a lot of people, crypto is money. So that's. They're wondering if they're getting paid back in Bitcoin or in dollars. That's all, or FTT tokens.
Yeah, well, won't be that.
Okay.
I guess, Sarah, we've seen the FTX estate clawing back funds from, different partners lately. How dependent is this on them clawing back more funds, or is it at all?
Yeah, I mean they have already clawed back quite a bit, but that won't affect the 90% figure, right? I mean, it affects what's in the total pot ultimately, what's to be distributed, but it doesn't affect the percentage. So that, I mean, assuming this settlement is approved by the court, right? It won't affect the percentage, but of course, the more the debtors can claw back, the better it is for the total pot.
All right, Sarah, we are going to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insight.
Thank you so much.
That was Eversheds Sutherland attorney Sarah Paul.